Welcome to the live stream, everybody. Bitcoin is still kind of range bound, but we're at a very interesting level. I want to go over a few things, but first I'm just starting out on my shorter time frame chart here. I did just enter a little bit of a short position. I don't have everything lining up with the indicators that I want. I'm going to go into why I took this position a little bit. Basically, what I love doing with these indicators is spotting which direction they are trending. So not necessarily taking each individual signal, but this is the MDX ALGO Trend Master indicator. So you see I have these buy signals, the sell signals. I'm going to turn off my other indicators. But then on top of that, these yellow P's here, these are these are pivot points. And I, again, not so much taking each one individually, but noticing when they are trending a certain direction. So basically I've entered this position because I have the sell signal on this indicator. And on top of that, we have this pivot point here and then a lower pivot point. And that was my signal to take my short. My stop loss is basically just a little bit above the previous point, because if we end up invalidating that and we end up changing that direction, basically, then it's looking like we're going to start trending P's to the upside again. And therefore, I want to just cut my losses and call it for what it is. But as it stands right now, we're just going to kind of see how the price does react with this and see what happens. If we get some sort of actually, you know what, just based on price structure itself, let me just remove some stuff. Oh no, I am going to watch this level, as currently that is the lower high on this 1 minute trend. So that can very easily change because this is just a 1 minute chart, right? So I mean, these things change very quickly, but as far as a scalping perspective, I'm basically looking at this as my lower high at this time, and we have these downward sloping pivot points with this sell signal here. So just a few things going for me. One thing I don't like about this setup, actually one more thing I do like as well, is that we dropped this higher low. I would have expected us to find some sort of a double bottom formation from that level, but we never did. So there's just a bit of a lack of strength there. So I like that. The only part about this trade setup I don't like is that these sell signals are not trending the same direction, right? They are trending to the upside. So yes, although this is a sell signal, it's technically a higher sell signal. So if we get a higher buy signal come into play, that's another thing that's basically going to make me considering cutting my losses or downsizing my position or whatever. But yeah, that's just kind of a couple ways I love using this indicator. It's not always just about entering positions, you guys. When it comes to using indicators, they can be used for so much more. And honestly, I usually like to use them more so on the side of risk management and yeah, just basically looking for a second opinion of why maybe I should consider not entering a position, or when I think it's time, maybe I should start taking profits if I'm starting to feel greedy, but all of a sudden these indicators start changing directions and, you know, the P's start trending the opposite direction, or, you know, we go from, you know, just like this, the fact that we have this higher sell signal has me a little bit nervous right now about this. So maybe I am ignoring that a little bit just based on these other things, but pros and cons, I think it's a fairly tight stop, and there's a good chance that we do see some sort of reversal here. So whatever, we'll see what happens. But yeah, it can just be a good thing. Like, let's say, you know, something that made me want to talk about this a little bit today was how this indicator actually acted yesterday. It made some very nice calls yesterday. If you were looking at it, what I'm talking about with how the indicators are trending, right? I know it can look like a lot when you're really zoomed out, but when you really kind of start noticing which way these signals are trending, for example, this is kind of what I mean by that, right? We have this buy signal, we have a higher buy signal, a higher buy signal, and we see these yellow P's trending to the upside. On the auto charting tools, we have, you know, we had a lower high here, but then we started trending, you know, higher highs, higher lows, higher low, higher high, higher low. So everything on the indicators were just kind of trending to the upside, and then we just got that beautiful pop to the upside. And then notice what happens on the other end of things. We end up getting this lower sell signal, and look what happens after that. The P's start trending to the downside, and we basically retrace that entire breakout that we had very quickly. And these indicators, were an excellent warning for that. Everybody was starting to get bullish, and myself included. I was starting to think maybe we are breaking through resistance right now, but it is time to be cautious, because when I was looking at my 4-hour here, you guys know I pointed out this signal and this strategy weeks ago at this point. Basically pulling the Fibonacci's from the auto charting tool signals like a lower high, and notice we ended up struggling right at the 786 there, and that's exactly where these signals started trending to the downside. So I never did catch this long. I was preoccupied with some other stuff yesterday, but I did catch the reversal and just played it the exact opposite way, and that's when everyone was getting FOMO at the time. But we were just trading into resistance, and these the indicators started warning that, hey, we're starting to trend to the downside now. Same with the buy signals, right? From this buy signal to the one just to the right there, that one is slightly lower, just like the sell, lower sell, lower sell, buy, lower buy. On top of that, we went from the auto charting tools setting higher highs and higher lows. All of a sudden, we're getting these lower high signals coming into play. So there was just some warnings, and that's right as we're trading into resistance, right? So any indicator, no matter how good, I absolutely love the strategies I come up with these indicators. I love using them. I think they're so customizable and just so fantastic to come up with strategies for both entries and, like I was saying, risk management, taking profits, all that kind of stuff. But with any strategy, any indicator, I always think that price action comes first, right? So you still want to know how to read support and resistance. Those kind of levels, you want to be able to notice, lower highs, higher highs, and all that sort of stuff. You want to be able to do that on your own without the indicators, because quite often I actually look at them a little bit different. But getting that second opinion is just just a beautiful thing, right? I always say, price action first, but I love using indicators and which way they're trending and stuff like that as basically a second opinion. Yeah, so basically looking at the 1 minute, like I said, we do still have this sell signal. We either get a higher buy signal come into play, or basically start breaking, closing candles above this lower high here. Then I am going to be reevaluating my position, basically. But as it stands, we are still holding this sell signal as resistance here. So we'll just see what happens. Again, zooming out, I want to take a look at the 4-hour here, because I always like looking at the 4-hour. That's just a very good, I think everybody should watch the 4-hour, right? Even though I'm trading the 1 minute and the 1 minute, the 5 minute, I always have a kind of general idea of what the 4-hour is doing. And I've been talking about some of this stuff for, basically since June at this point. There is some things I will say I'm more bullish than I was, a week or two ago, just because we keep testing this resistance level. There is something to be said there that maybe we eventually do end up breaking that. But resistance is resistance until it's broken. The auto charting tools also printed a higher low here. Now, I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest. I personally don't consider it a higher low until we end up breaking the lower high. That's basically when I confirm levels, but that's just the indicators take different things into consideration than I do. So this is just a warning on my radar that, hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we aren't going to test down towards 52K like I was kind of thinking, just because there is some warning signs there. That being said, trading is all about being able to react over predict. I say this all the time, reacting over predicting any day. So it's always good to be aware of different potential scenarios, right? Because honestly, I myself, when it comes to listening to traders who say this is what's going to happen, I honestly don't take them very serious. This is the opposite for a lot of people, because I would rather listen to a trader who says, hey, I think either this or this happens. And a lot of people would say, oh yeah, you're saying it could go either way. Yes, it's kind of a thing where, hey, if A happens, I need to react with option X. Whereas if B happens, I need option Y. So, that's again where you got to be able to see what's happening with those structure levels, how the price is actually reacting with those levels. That's the key when it comes to like actually picking entries and stop losses and stuff like that, right? So as it stands right now, as far as a bearish scenario, yeah, we're absolutely, yesterday we got right into my resistance STUBER fib pocket there. A beautiful rejection there. Now the question is, are we going to hold some sort of this higher low? We could look for a Fibonacci pull, something like that. Maybe we find support somewhere in here if we do dump to the downside. However, that being said, if this doesn't hold, if we end up losing this higher low support, I think it's absolutely back on the table that we're heading down towards 52K. And my reasoning for that is basically pulling a Fibonacci from our current low, right? And so the thing is, guys, with how I'm looking at this right now, it would not be anything crazy for us to break down lower, because I know a lot of you guys are well aware that I have a bullish thesis that, hey, I think this is a downtrend. And I mean, when we really zoom out like this, and let me get rid of the indicators, just looking at very basic structure, we have been setting lower lows and lower highs. We set a new lower low. We end up, and I know this is going to be repetitive for some of you guys, but this is just a typical structure break that I would love to short on the 1 minute, for example, is low, lower low, going to pull the Fibonacci, and look where we get rejected, right? STUBER fib. We end up breaking that low, set a lower low. Let's just pull the fib from the lower high there. And down to the lower low. Where do we get rejected? Right when everyone was getting FOMO at the Trump speeches, boom, we end up getting rejected at that STUBER fib pocket again. After that, we did end up setting another lower low. So yes, we got a nice bounce from there. That's totally fine. That does not mean we're necessarily in a bullish trend, because we still have this confirmed lower high up here that we would actually have to break to basically invalidate the bearish trend. Yes, that's a far ways away. And yes, there's absolutely reasons to be bullish, up to some higher levels. That's the thing, is I'm seeing reasons why I think we could trade a little bit higher, but I think Bitcoin's going to have a hell of a time at that 65 to 68K. Just because, again, with that bearish trend, that is where my STUBER fib pocket lines up once again. Do we get the exact same thing 4 times in a row or whatever? Doesn't have to happen, but it is something worth considering, right? But same on the opposite end. If we end up breaking this support down here, I think it's quite likely in a bullish scenario for Bitcoin. I think there would be nothing better than for us to test down towards this 52K, the 786, even the 886, all the way down towards 49K. I think that would be very healthy, especially if we pull up the RSI and, just how overextended we were at these levels when we bottomed out. If we end up getting a beautiful bullish divergence, something like that, where the RSI just kind of bounces around a little bit, comes down basically as we test this level, kind of testing that 30-ish level on the RSI. I think that would be grounds for an absolutely beautiful launch pad, just like we had the exact same thing back here. I think that would just be a beautiful bullish play. But that being said, if the RSI ends up dropping into oversold territory again, and we're not getting that bullish divergence as we come down towards this support level, I think that's where it gets very scary for Bitcoin, because in the grand scheme of things, if we end up losing this support, I mean, we keep basically just setting, this is the weekly chart now, we keep setting lower lows and lower highs. We basically get these little order blocks that we end up losing them. We reclaim them and lose them that second time, and then it's nuked down to a lower low. Same with right here, right? We had this order block here. We end up losing it. We reclaim it. We lose it again. And now we're respecting that support as resistance so far, right? I mean, that can change. If we end up breaking above this, then you know what? I'll shut my mouth. I think we're going towards those higher levels. But no matter how you look at it, I think Bitcoin has a lot of work to do to start talking about all-time highs again. I know everyone loves thinking that all-time highs are right around the corner, and absolutely, again, if we break this structure, everything changes, for my opinion. Just I like to trade the charts on what structure is currently there, not assuming how the chart is going to be, a month down the road or whatever, based on a gut feeling kind of a thing. So as it stands right now, day one technical analysis would tell you that this Right here is a series of lower lows and lower highs. That is called a downtrend. And until that breaks, I have to remain a little bit cautious. I just don't really have that FOMO in the market. That being said, that's just kind of so that I'm able to keep a level head while looking at trading the downside and stuff like that, just so I don't have FOMO. It's not that I'm bearish on crypto as a whole. I love Bitcoin. I move it around. I use it every day. I trade it every day. I absolutely love the crypto space, don't get me wrong, but I still understand that bearish trends happen and anything can happen. And that's why I say that we don't necessarily need to continue this downtrend, because the market doesn't give a shit what I think right now, right? I'm just looking at potential scenarios, basically. Right now we are trading. I'm actually in a small loss so far on this trade. Probably should have just taken profits down here, but whatever. We are coming up to this lower high here, so if we end up closing candles above that, I might just cut my losses quickly, just in case. But yeah, how's everyone else feeling about the market? I got to catch up on the chat here a little bit. Oh, Eugenia? So hopefully I'm saying that right. Sorry if I'm not. You came here because you saw me with Tone and Matt. You're about to finish the course's videos and start looking at the ones you just mentioned. Upload. If there are any videos where I explain the configuration of what we see in my screen. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Well, that's awesome that you found us through that. I mean, I love doing streams over there as well. I haven't done any this week. I've had other things going on, but I'm planning to do one with them also this weekend, hopefully. Love doing them over there as well. But yeah, looking for my indicators and how they look. So basically, the trend dynamic is the one that makes all my colors beautiful like this. There is a whole bunch of things you can do with that indicator as well. A lot of them are very customizable. I really just use it because I like the way it looks. So I use gradient one color there with inverted candle colors. As far as the trend master indicator that I've been talking about here, with the buys and sells and stuff like that. So basically, if you go into your settings, I have a preset here. So if you just select StuTube trading, you automatically get the same signals that I do, basically. It's just a preset of the settings. And again, I don't know how many times you've heard of me talking about these indicators and how I use them, and hopefully you were here at the start of the video. But yeah, I'm more so using them to kind of as a second opinion of which way the market is trending is kind of how I like to use it. On the shorter time frames, it can obviously get quite choppy and stuff like that. Longer time frames, I mean, just on its own, this back test's very nice when you look at the longer time frames. If you want to kind of spot market reversals, I guess usually obviously you're gonna miss a large chunk of the bigger move like this, right? But a lot of people got blindsided but by the second half of this last bear market, where this signal, I mean, that was an absolutely beautiful signal. It's still called a 50% move to the downside. If you bought right at the buy signal, I mean, you'd be up, over 100% right now. On the longer time frames, this thing has been absolutely phenomenal. It has made some juicy calls. But yeah, on the shorter time frames, I more so come up with strategies of how I use them and stuff like that. It looks like we're trying to break out here. So far, a little bit of a swing fail. You know what? I'm just gonna leave it. We don't have P's trending to the upside yet. P's are still trending to the downside. We're just going to see what happens here. It's just a smaller position anyways, because I don't want to do anything too risky while I'm distracted here. I wanted to look at the 1 hour as well, actually. Because this is something that caught my eye earlier, is we did have these lower sells and we had lower buys, but then we started trending buy signals to the upside on the 1 hour. So that's what, I might switch to a bullish bias fairly soon if we end up breaking, like we are trying to break that that lower high structure. You know what? I am going to cut my losses early on this one. Very small loss, but I'm just seeing potential for a reversal here, and I'd rather just, since I'm not confident on it, I'd rather just nip it early right now. What I would be interested in now is, since we broke that structure, and since looking at the 1 hour chart, we do have these upward sloping trend signals, right? We're starting to see higher buy signals like this. That leads me to think that there might be some further upside movement here. I am just getting a little bit of feedback from someone. I'm just gonna mute everybody here, I think. If anyone needs to speak or anything, let me know, by the way. I just don't want to have any echoes or whatever. So yeah, with these upward trending buy signals, and so far we do still have these upward sloping P's, right? By that I mean, and this is kind of a new strategy as well, because these pivot points, they have just been introduced to the indicators like a few weeks ago, and it's something that I just kind of started catching with my eye a little bit. So definitely, if you're going to throw any serious money behind it, do some back testing, make sure you're looking at things properly, kind of figure out your odds before you're getting into them, find out what your invalidation levels are and that sort of thing. But you can see that here. And another thing to watch with these pivot points is it can play tricks on your eyes a little bit, is notice if they are below or above the price, right? To see if they are bullish or bearish. But yeah, basically we have this pivot down here. We have this higher one up here. And then we have this one is very slightly higher once again. So this is the opposite direction, right? This is actually a higher sell pivot. So yeah, all the P's are technically trending to the upside right now on the hour, as well as the buy signals. So what would interest me right now would be, since we broke this lower high structure, and just to make it more clear, I'm going to remove my colors and stuff. So basically, looking at this immediate downtrend here, we had basically this low, lower low, confirmed lower high. Lower low again, confirmed lower high. So now, although I may not get it and we might just break out to the upside from here, ideally what I want to see is some sort of a retrace. And just because then, you know, if I entered a position right now, my invalidation was way below here, right? Just because where our local bottom is so far, basically. So to tighten up the risk there, I want to get in at a pullback, because when we're using leverage, yeah, we might not always get the position that we wanted to, but it's just important to minimize your risk a little bit. So that's where I would rather wait for a pullback than trying to play a breakout. But basically, I would like to see this sort of a pullback. If we could get back down into these levels, I would consider taking a stab at a long, and you know what? We'll see what happens if we get it. Kind of looks like we're going to rip right down there. And again, guys, obviously, always make sure you have bankroll management in mind, right? Like you want to be able to lose several positions. You don't want to go all in on a position. Like when I'm using high leverage and stuff like that, I'm using smaller leverage or smaller margin amounts. Sorry, just gotta mute people. Have a little bit of noise still. All good. Yeah, so basically the thing is, every trader is going to take losses. You're never going to win all your trades or anything like that. But the important thing is that when you take a loss, you want it to be controlled, right? You want it to not be a massive loss, obviously, but still have some sort of an invalidation level that's legit. Like right now, to take a stab at a long down here, and I personally like to ladder in heavier as I get towards my invalidation, but basically I ladder in a little 786, 886 at the double bottom, and then usually my average entry ends up somewhere between my 886 and my 1, and then stop loss is just a little below my 115 basically, just so that it's controlled, right? But because yeah, like I was saying, had I just FOMO'd in because we broke that structure, then you know what, I'd take a significantly bigger loss than if I end up taking a loss from down here, you know. It's just more controlled. You know, I was even tempted when I did close that little short there. I was tempted to wait until we got some sort of a retrace and then end up closing it. I probably, even though I was wrong on the trade, I still could have technically profited, but I just wasn't comfortable with the fact that we broke that. There was the chance that we just blasted off right through, right? There was no guarantee we were going to get this pullback. So I just wanted to, and since it was such a small one, it didn't bother me too much. Yeah, we're still trying to hold that sell trend though. You know what? I might hold off on this long right now. It's just kind of looking like, you know, I think I'd want to see another higher buy signal come into play before I end up playing again. Just being that I have a couple concerns right now, I would rather just sit on the sidelines than necessarily enter, you know, just bring risk to myself at this point. There's a few things I want to look at too before I jump into any decisions here. I want to see, okay, the market is 53% retail long on Binance. So that's actually very low compared to some of the levels we've seen recently. A lot of the times when we end up absolutely just nuking to the downside, we've seen this at like 70. I think the one time I saw it at 76% long or something like that. And at that point, that's just so much liquidity for the market maker to grab, and generally retail is wrong, right? So the fact that that has come down significantly and we are trading at, you know, some of those important resistance levels, there's a chance that we end up actually breaking through resistance this time. We do still have this buy trend support on the 4 hour with this indicator. I don't know how I feel about this one, to be honest. We do technically have a lower sell signal and a slightly lower buy signal, but it kind of seems like we're just chopping sideways right now. And I think the market needs to break out of this range basically before I take any of these signals on the 4 hour too serious right now. What do we have? So far the P's are trending to the upside as well, right? We got this bullish pivot here, although we dropped below it a little bit. We never lost our low, and then we ended up getting a higher pivot point. So at this point, I know it's a little bit further to the downside here, but as long as we stay above that 56K, I think Bitcoin's in a pretty good place. And then, I mean, from there we lose that. I think it's a straight shot down to 52. If we see that hold again, I mean, we're going to have to see what happens. I see reasons why we would have support at that level. Here, let me just remove a couple things again. Yeah, I totally see reasons why we would have support down there, you know, a potential 786 with bullish divergence and stuff like that. But I'm just worried that, you know, the fact that we've broken our lows and set so many lower lows and lower highs at this point is, I know a lot of people are thinking that this is an accumulation range, but the fact that we're setting lower lows and lower highs, it kind of looks like distribution to me, honestly. So it's just something that I got to be cautious of. But again, if we break through this, basically if we break through this support, I think we're going down to this STUBER fib down here. If we end up breaking this resistance, I think we're going to this STUBER fib up here. So I'm actually going to also make a support box, just like I did my resistance box, just so that those levels are always on my radar on the 4 hour chart there. So yeah, as far as the macro picture goes, I think, you know, if we can break out of this range to the upside, we're targeting this red box. We break to the downside, we're targeting this green box. But yeah, so far we're just kind of trending sideways here. Let's jump back to the shorter time frames. Ooh, actually one other thing I wanted to check with some of these indicators is the liquidations indicator. This is a good one just to keep on the radar as a little bit of a heat map, right? This is basically all these yellow lines here, yellow and gold lines or brown, whatever color it is. Basically, this is high leverage liquidation levels. So if I go into my settings, you can see I turn them all off except for high liquidation. So, or like 50x leverage and 100x leverage, those are the liquidation levels you're seeing. So there is still liquidity both directions to be grabbed. Honestly, there's more to the upside, right? There is a lot of liquidations to the upside, just from people who ended up shorting late, and also the fact that there is actually quite a few people shorting this market right now. Finally, there is some liquidity up there, but notice where it lines up. So much of it, the bulk of it, it kind of lines up just below the 786 all the way up to the 886, a little more near double top territory, but a good chunk of it right in that resistance box that I've been outlining as well. So totally reasons why that would be respected. And same on the other side, right, where I was calling for 52k. If we end up dropping this range, and where are those liquidation levels? Are just above that 786 fib, just above my green box there. So just another way that I like to use this indicator, just to see, hey, do these levels make sense? Yeah, there's liquidations there of high leverage traders. Yep, makes sense that, if we break out to the upside, we're going to grab that. We break to the downside, going to grab that. Obviously anything can happen and that trend can change at any time, but that's just kind of how it's looking to me at this point. What's the difference between distribution and accumulation? So accumulation would be basically when you're trading in a big range sideways, but it's people, specifically large holders, buying and just accumulating the Bitcoin, right? So they are loading their spot bags. Whereas if it's distribution, it means that, yes, we're just trading sideways once again, but it's not necessarily bullish this time, because it might be people, it might be the market maker holding the price up instead of holding the price down. So they're holding it up so that people get FOMO, and then those people get used as exit liquidity, basically, right? So as they're willing to buy the top. And then the market maker can end up grabbing that liquidity, basically. Or not even the market maker, but the big players, right? The market maker holding the price up, and the people with the deeper pockets are able to slowly sell into resistance, while people end up getting FOMO into resistance, because the general public loves to get FOMO into resistance, and they love to get very bearish into support, right? That's a natural reaction, and it's very hard to train yourself to work against that. But that is just a thing, right? And I mean, like I was pointing out on the 4-hour chart, as we traded into this level here, everyone was getting so bullish, and I was saying that I thought the Trump speech was going to be a perfect sell the news event, especially that we had this lower low structure break and we were trading right into my 786 886 fib pocket. Everyone was so bullish at this point across like Twitter and just social media in general, and it ended up being the absolute perfect top. And that's just very typical. That's just people love getting bullish into resistance because it looks like we're going to break out, right? Just like yesterday, it really looked like we were going to break this resistance. But again, that same Fibonacci pocket. And that's why I love that 786 886, right? We just see that pocket get respected so often. And then using the auto charting tools, you can kind of help locate pivot points of where to pull Fibonacci's from and stuff. Obviously, again, it's not going to work out every time, but just a great second opinion kind of a thing. So we do, just to label this out as a typical STUBER fib, gonna make that green because we had the bullish break of the lower high there. Might not even get the pullback down there. Trendmaster, yeah, the Trendmaster still showing a little bit of resistance there. Let me just lock this in place. Liquidations, I don't use the liquidations as much on the shorter time frames. They either don't show up or they're so far away that it doesn't really apply to the 1 minute so much. Trend dynamic for the beautiful colors there. Let's bring up the RSI. Yeah, we might bounce a little bit early. This wave master indicator looks like it's flipping bullish a little bit right now. I would still rather see it happen down here, to be honest. What's the 5 minute looking like? Let's what kind of structure do we have going on? Oh, we have this lower high signal here. Interesting. Potential short scalp a person could watch for would be something like this. Again, just using that auto charting tool signal, pulling from there down and just kind of chasing the price right now, and then waiting for some sort of a bounce up towards those fibs, and then looking to play it down to the range target, basically, right? And that's why before I started the stream, I was actually talking about one of the reasons why I love using the STUBER FIBS so much. You know, they're not going to work every time, but just why I love that strategy so much is because it's so structured, right? You have your entry levels that you're waiting for that pullback after a structure break, and then you have a range target, which is my 214. And so basically it reminds you, right, if this is how big of a Fibonacci I'm pulling, that means that's the size of the range that I'm looking to play, right? So at that point, if I can enter in that fib pocket, I'd be looking at starting to take profits at this level. I never close a position entirely when I end up entering a winning position, because I like to let it run. You know, if I'm treating it as a scalp first, so that I pay myself as long as if it allows me, obviously. But yeah, always remembering to take those profits quickly and just downsizing your risk a little bit, and then hoping to catch that home run with the rest. So a lot of people only take trades looking for home run positions, and that's just a good way to get yourself wrecked, right? Because again, like I was talking about earlier, the market so more often trends sideways or chops around sideways rather than trending a direction with a bunch of strength, right? Yes, we have those breakout periods, but so often Bitcoin is actually just kind of in some sort of a choppy mess range. And that's where using Fibonacci's and stuff, just to remind yourself to pay yourself, play the range first. And then if you want to leave some on the table and try and catch a running position, then that's kind of what I like to do, right? Yeah, the 5 minutes. So yeah, that's an interesting signal on the 5 minutes. So we have a little bit conflicting from the 1 hour, the 5 minute. I'm going to go back to the 1 minute in a second, but I'd like to start zoomed out, work my way in. So looking at the 5 minute, what do we all see here? We have this Fibonacci. Just going to map this out as potential resistance to watch for. Remove that to make it a little cleaner. Downwards trending P's. This, or no, they're actually trending to the upside technically. Sell signals trending to the downside. Let's see what the 1 minute's saying. So, you know, even when I zoom into the 1 minute like this yellow box here makes a lot of sense for potential resistance, because again, just going back to how I look at STUBER FIBS, basically, is, here, let me remove all the indicators. So just going off price action here, basically, we had this little bit of an uptrend, right? High, higher high, higher high, higher high, actually even a higher high, higher high. And then we end up losing this immediate trend. So after we end up losing that, I mean, it looks like we already got one, actually. Did we get a STUBER fib there? No, we never quite got it. Got front run a little bit. But it would make a lot of sense now that since we do have this downtrend on the go here, that we get some sort of a bounce eventually to retest that Stuber fib, right? And that lines up with my yellow box here. And on the 5 minute, the auto charting tools agree with that lower high signal, so, or that lower high level. So just a little confirmation there. So if we do end up in some sort of a long position and we do get some sort of a nice move to the upside, I will absolutely be taking most of it off the table if we get to those levels, just in case. Because again, playing the range basically, right? So if, just because I don't know if or when we end up getting up towards that box, it probably won't be during this stream, to be honest. But if we do, basically how I'd be looking at going about that is entering, laddering into my position, stop loss somewhere above my red line there. And I would be looking at basically playing it down towards the 214. And the reason for the 214 is because that would basically be the opposite 786, right? So if the 786 is a level that I'm interested in selling or shorting in this example, then on the opposite end of things, I would be looking at buying or longing at the opposite one, right? So the 214 is basically the opposite, because if we end up in this box at the 886, for example, I would pull a Fibonacci something like that, and you can see that this 214 is just front running it. So basically the opposite. Hopefully that makes sense. Basically, if I'm interested in playing that level from the opposite direction, or a direction in general, then when looking at it the opposite, yeah, maybe it makes a lot of sense to start taking profits at those levels, right? But we'll see if we even end up getting up here. It does look like we're slowly trending down to this level down here. And again, just looking at some sort of a scalp, you could look at something like that, right? Trying to enter somewhere in here. I kind of want to see how we react with this level, to be honest. I want to see if we can hold it for a couple candles. But that's basically what I'd be looking at, right? Entering around this box, because we had that little very micro structure break, and it's the 1 minute. Remember, it is what it is. If this is way too small of a move and it doesn't seem like it's worth your time, and why would you take profit so quick, then this is just too small of a setup for what you're looking for, right? And you'd be more so interested in something like this if you're looking at a bigger move, I suppose. But I'm just talking very micro, very immediate, because everybody knows Bitcoin's been real choppy lately. So just, yeah, looking for little scalps, basically. Yeah, I don't know. The 5 minute looks a little bearish. The 1 hour looked nice. I'm not gonna lie. I like the look of the 1 hour, but obviously, no matter which way we go, just make sure that you have a plan in place, right? Definitely use stop losses. Never trade without a stop loss. And even if you are using a stop loss, make sure that you also take margin into consideration, because a stop loss is not always 100% worst case scenario. I have had stop losses in profits and got liquidated on positions before. So if I had been all in on that position, for example, even though I was supposed to take profit, if my stop got hit, I would have liquidated my account, right? But instead, no, that's why I use isolated margin trading, so that I just pick an amount I'm okay with losing, worst case scenario, basically, because a stop loss is not, as much as it always feels like that's worst case scenario, it is not worst case scenario, because slippage does happen sometimes. So yeah, just a few things to take into consideration, right? basically, anytime you enter a position, understand what worst case scenario is. And if you're not okay with that outcome, then you're using too much money or too much leverage, or, you know, you're just generally using too much. Especially if you're trading shorter time frames. I mean, if losing one or two trades really triggers an emotional response, then you either need to dial down the position sizes or just start trading less, looking for, um, I guess, bigger plays, or because that's the thing, right? Like, I love trading the 1 minute, but it's not for everybody. You know, it leads to over trading, revenge trading, over leveraging, all those behaviors that we're really supposed to ignore. Ignore those urges. So just understand that trading the shorter time frames can lead to that kind of thing. So just know yourself, know if it works for you. I honestly think most people should probably trade like the 1 hour or the 4 hour. I just personally like to kind of get in and out of the market. I want to know within a few minutes, basically, if my position's just going to get, like, going to kick me out right away, get invalidated, or it's going to turn into a runner of some kind. I just like to know very quickly, basically. I'm not comfortable with this because there, you know, there is black swan events and there is things in the economy that happen that can change things. And that's where I feel like with the longer time frames, there is more of a chance of something actually affecting the markets. Whereas with the shorter time frames, I just feel, I don't know, for me personally, I actually relax more by being a total degenerate rather than swing trading. How hard will it be to break through the resistance level? Depends which one. This one up here, probably not that hard, to be honest, but generally speaking, when I look for these Stuber fib setups, I look for that initial test of it. That's the one thing with, and by the way, I am going to take a small position if we hit that. But basically, that's one thing holding me back about remaining super bearish at this level. I know we're still at resistance technically, but the fact that we have tested this level so many times, it just makes me think that eventually we may end up breaking that. And that's where I personally like the first test of those levels. Like, I assume this would have been one here when we ended up getting down to this level. And yeah, look at that. We would have ended up testing that 786 absolutely perfectly. So that would have been the first time that we actually got that, because obviously here we actually got close to it there too. But that would have been the first time the 786 actually got tested. And I love playing the first attempt because so often there is a reaction the first time. Whereas once it starts getting tested more and more, then that's it's more likely to break, I suppose. So that's where I would be thinking that, you know, I'd expect some sort of a reaction the first time we test this level. Maybe we go a little bit higher, but again, that's why I have those other fibs in place, right? Like maybe we get a double top, maybe we even get a little liquidity grab up, something like that. But I would expect some sort of a reaction the first time. If we end up, you know, getting above this high back here, I would basically be looking for any reason to start downsizing my position. Basically, anytime it got back into a profit or anything like that, I would be looking at downsizing a little bit, just because there is technically a test above the high. And that would just be just showing bullish warnings, basically, right? Not saying it necessarily needs to play out, but just the fact we're testing up there, since we get higher, I would be willing to take profits a little sooner than, let's say, the 214. Whereas if we get we get into this box and a very quick rejection, just respect it absolutely perfectly, something like that, which happens quite often, then yeah, I would expect us to basically end up back down at these levels. But yeah, I'd be very interested to see how we react the very first time we get there. So I know the auto charting tools show this as the lower high. Technically, I more so consider it this, to be honest, because technically low, lower low, lower high. But I know the indicators, they take other things into consideration, like volume and a bunch of other things. But just looking at straight structure, I think there's a chance we actually go up a little bit higher. But, you know, I've had good luck in the past pulling Fibonacci's off these signals. So, you know what? The fact that it does line up with where we ended up rallying to on the 1 minute, you know, there's just some added confluence there. Oh, nice. I ended up hitting the 786. And this is exactly what I mean, you guys. Look how quick of a reaction that was. Yes, it's still possible this ends up getting shut down. Since we already tested that, I'm actually going to cancel my order a little bit lower at the 886. I got in at 63.11. So I always front run my fibs just a little bit. Same with on the taking profit side. Yeah, what do we got here? So yeah, a little ways to go. I am going to set a take profit on half my position, basically here, just a little below 60.4. Just to make sure if we get there really quick for whatever reason, I want to start locking some in, just downsizing my risk. I used to actually have an earlier TP, the 0.5, just as the middle of the range, and you can see that one would have already been hit. I kind of got rid of that one, and I'm more so looking at the full range play, so I'm more so looking at the 214. I do win less trades because obviously it's a lot easier to hit this one since it's so close. So it depends what kind of a scalper you want to be, but yeah, that's another level of interest basically as a scalper. But yeah, I'm really hoping to reach more so the 214. So basically win less trades by looking for this target, but when you win, it's obviously about double the winnings, right? So depends what, if you want to more so trade more frequently or look for bigger positions. That's just kind of what I like doing myself. Just curious, did anyone else end up taking the long off that Stuber fib? I was kind of hoping we would have hit my second entry as well at the 886, but never quite got there. Asked if you ended up taking the long out of the 786, 886 fib pocket there. So since you're newer to the community, I guess you're definitely not as familiar with those Stuber setups. A lot of you guys probably probably have seen them a million times at this point. But so basically what I was mentioning earlier was that since we broke this lower high structure here, that's where I'm pulling a Fibonacci looking for that pullback to the 786, 886. So in that case, I usually ladder in the 786, 886 at the 1. And then, yeah, basically target this. So it's a scalp play, right? It is just the 1 minute, but I'm just hoping to play this range, close half my position if we end up getting up here. And then from there, hope the rest of the position runs, basically. So 388 is my partial TP. Oh, well, it was hit. And now my stop loss goes to break even. So see how that works? We get that structure break, get the pullback, look for the range first. It just makes sense that after a bullish break of the trend after a bullish break of the trend, it makes sense that after hitting a support level, you would at least test somewhere higher up in the range, right? Since there's a bullish break, you expect that you're not just going to absolutely dump off a cliff from there. You're expecting some sort of a bounce, even if we're going to, like right now. And this is exactly why I make sure to start taking profits quick, is we have a lower high signal here. It's very possible this is just a lower high on the trend, but even if I'm wrong now, at least I made some money, right? Removed my risk, because it's very possible we end up getting shut down here. I personally, I don't know if I want to take this one. Do I hedge a short? Oh, don't apologize. Most of the people here have seen me just kind of refer to STUBER FIBS now for 6 months to a year or something like that, so it just kind of became second language at this point. But no, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Yeah, no, I'm not going to hedge a short on this one. It's already testing my invalidation level. Oh, I got rid of my... There we go. So does that make sense then? Why I ended up taking that trade, why I ended up taking some profits when I did, and also why I left half my position running? So I mapped it out just with this green line, right? So even though it was resistance, I just made this little green line because that was the bullish structure break, basically. Right? And this is micro analyzing, but that's what scalping is, right? So we had this trend to the downside. Here was our last low, lower low, lower high. Micro analyzing, but just on that immediate trend. So that's the level as soon as it broke. Exactly why I said I wasn't going to FOMO in, because there's a good chance you get a big pullback, right? And that's where a lot of people have an issue trading shorter time frames, but also longer time frames, is they want immediate, right? It's the same reason why back, on the longer time frames like this as well, is that people get very bearish right here and everybody starts shorting heavily as we break support, which makes sense because that is bearish price action, right? But nobody wants to give the market time to reset. And then they start getting bullish as you get your proper pullback, but that's what you're waiting for to get into the short. So yes, this is the bearish signal, but you're waiting for that pullback, and that's where I pull those Fibonacci's, what I showed before, right? Same with down here. Yes, this was a very bearish signal right here, but when we had this signal, I did switch bullish temporarily because we had certain criteria, right? We had the RSI divergence and we had a 786 pullback right here, right? So there was things saying that, yes, we had a very bearish scenario here by setting a lower low, but it makes sense to get that retrace. And again, if you pull the fib from here, you're having your 786, 886 right here. And then again, down here, this is once again technically a very bearish sign, but there's still that chance that we end up trending to the upside for a while, right? Just since we're flirting with the idea of getting up here, I'm actually gonna close out most of my position around 65, 577, 569. There we go. Just give me a sec to set that. So again, just front running my resistance box again. And once again, the reason for that yellow box is just pulling a Fibonacci from our local high down to where we bottomed out here, and just front running it a little bit. So see if we end up hitting my next take profit. Uh-oh, hear my cats fighting. So that's why, you know, this is a live example of why I love the 786, 886 fib pocket so much, right? And why I've basically started trading pretty much only that. Like, even though I look at indicators and stuff for those second opinions and which way to be trading it more so, notice how, like, just kind of throwing it all together. So the 1 hour was showing that, hey, there's higher trending buy signals, so there's chance of continuation to the upside. Then we had on the 1 minute this break of lower high structure. Then we get that pullback, immediate reaction off the 786. That's quite typical. Yes, sometimes you end up, you know, getting further into the 886 or even the complete double bottom, but so often, you know, if the market's itching to click that button, so often it's right at the 786 basically. And sometimes it is front run a little bit, and that's why I front run it a little bit. Oh, Thump, you're in here. Welcome, welcome. If it passes the 786, like for the entry down here or for the target up here? Um, for the entry. So basically, I had a few entries set when I decided that, hey, I'm taking this. So what I usually do is about a sixth of the position, a third, and a half. So being, you know, when it takes off like this, it's great because, hey, you know what, basically was never in a loss on that position. That's a very nice feeling when you never have the stress of looking at a red number. It's unfortunate because I never got the bigger entries, but the reason for those bigger entries down towards my invalidation level is just to help drag that average entry down, right? And that's not saying I'm doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down on my position. I have a set amount and I'm breaking it up into and it depends. Like sometimes I do the sixth, the third, and a half. And then there's other times where I'll just enter at the 786 and the double bottom, and I'll do like, you know, a quarter here and 3/4 here, or even half and half, and then average entry is somewhere just above the 886. Kind of depends how I feel, but there's a few different ways. But I very rarely go all or nothing at one level, just like taking profits kind of do the same with when I'm entering positions. But once it started moving nicely right off the 786, I just cancel the other orders, because at that point, if we come back down, that might just be showing weakness. We never got the immediate grab of those orders, so I'm over it. I just want them to, I don't want to forget about them or something, right? If I end up updating a stop loss and end up getting stopped out on the rest of my position, I don't want to forget that those orders are there or something like that, right? So eventually I just get rid of them ASAP. Yes, when it breaks structure, that's basically when so this was my signal, and yes, I could have waited till down here, and I was in a little bit of a short at the very start of this stream, and I took a very small loss because I entered right around here somewhere, and I ended up closing my position just up here, just because I cut my losses because we had this bullish break of structure. I knew there was a good chance we still pull back after that, and I still could have ended up taking profits off that position, but there was a chance it breaks out, right? But generally speaking, when I'm entering positions, I'm more so on the side of waiting for those pullbacks just to have tighter risks. So basically, the signal to go long is up here, but the entry to go long is more so here, if that makes sense. just like on the longer time frame, this was my signal to be extremely bearish, but then I was still open to the idea that we end up trading to that 786, 886 fib pocket, which even on the 4 hour, the weekly, the 1 hour, the 5 minute, the 1 minute, you know, structure acts the same. It doesn't really matter what time frame you're on, right? Chart structure generally acts the same. Just people have a really hard time zooming out and letting patterns play out the way they do. Having a hard time getting to that second target there, though. Do I look at the 24 hour or the 5 minute for long short ratio? That's a good question. Whatever it's, I think the 24 hour is just what I generally look at. I don't change it, so. Oh yeah, I always forget that you can even change it. But yeah, I usually have it on the 24 hour. Come on, just a little higher. What are the indicators saying now? We do have this buy signal. That is technically a higher buy signal. Okay, that's looking good for the position then. Higher buy signal. The pivot points are trending to the upside because, so this one doesn't really count because that's a bearish one, but this is a bullish one because it's below the price, as well as this one. So that's a higher bullish P, right? So there's a few things trending to the upside right now, which gives me hope that we'll end up eventually tagging my second take profit there. Is anyone else in any positions? Just curious how everyone's feeling about the market. Anyone excessively bullish, excessively bearish? Long from 59, 351. Ooh, nice. $59, 351. So like, or do you mean 60? Or do you mean long from yesterday? Oh, nice. You're still in that one. Nice, nice. This one never grabbed you. Yeah, that was a nice rally we had yesterday. And again, the indicators were showing... Oh, let me get rid of the liquidations. Yeah, just how we ended up trending buy signals to the upside there. A bunch of higher lows being printed. And then it just blew up. But yeah, I never did catch that long side. I did catch the short when the sell signals reversed there. But we'll see what happens with this one. I just want to erase those ones. We know why this yellow box is here. I'm actually going to make it red, just because I usually have my STUBER fib boxes as red. And yeah, we'll just see if we can end up hitting that box. That's kind of my target for this position. I'll leave a little bit running, but I'll be closing most of it there. Leave a quarter. long on Ondo. I'll go check that out in a little bit. Long from 67.34. Right about there. Oh, that's a nice entry. And what I like about that is it looks like you got above this resistance too. Obviously, again, there's a chance after breaking that structure you get some kind of a pullback down. But being this is a 4 hour as well, maybe it will just carry on to the upside. You know, even if, you know, maybe something like this. You might be on your way up towards those levels. That would make a lot of sense, actually. What are some indicators saying? Trendmaster. Yeah, we still have a sell signal on the Trendmaster. However, like the price is above it. It may flip to a new buy signal right away from the looks of it. Yeah, that doesn't look so bad to me. That's on the 4 hour. I don't know what you're trading, but since you got in way down here, I assume you are looking at more of a swing there. Taking 75% of initial position, just letting the rest ride. Yeah, man, that's the way I do it. I find it so stressful, like, and I know other people do too. It must be so stressful to be an all or nothing trader, right? That like, I don't know what to do. Should I close my position or should I leave it open? Well, how about you close a quarter of it or a half of it and leave some run? Like that's an option that a lot of people don't realize is an option. It almost seems like that can remove so much stress from the game. You know, that way, hey, you know what? If it reverses here, basically the way I look at it is, if this position, I'm sitting in a juicy profit, if it reversed right now and I got stopped out at break even or at a loss, would I be upset? Well, if the answer is yes, because, hey, I should have known better, I should have taken some profits. If that's the answer, then why don't you just take a little bit at that time, right? If you've already acknowledged that you would be upset if things reversed on you, then maybe it's time to start taking a little bit of profits. At the same time, if you closed your entire position and it takes off, are you going to have regrets? If the answer is yes, then, you know, that's where you need to leave a little bit on the table as well, just in case, right? Oh, there we go. And just like this, right? Yeah, you know what? If I would have taken, you know, that 3/4 of my position off up here, rather than half here and then a quarter here, yeah, I would have made way more profits if I did that. But that's just how I trade. I take profits along the way, right? Because as soon as you get cocky and stop doing that, it's going to bite you in the ass. That's just how the market works. I notice we get this higher low signal here. So something that a person could do now, just using these indicators, again, looking for pivot points, right? That's where we can now start pulling a new Fibonacci. If we do end up getting rejected at my red resistance box here, you know, we can kind of start chasing the price now. Look at that. It just tapped the 786, a little bit of a pause already. So we'll see what happens. But, you know, if we do get rejected here, maybe we're just going to basically come back down to that fib pocket and once again have another scalp opportunity, right? Do I hedge a short right now? That is the question. I am going to hedge a little short right now. So I still have that quarter of my long running from down here, but now at this point I feel good leaving that run. So I feel good leaving that run, entering a bit of a short position here, because if this short ends up getting stopped out right now, I don't care. It's a smaller one than my long position because it's basically equal to what my current long is. So it's smaller, but whatever. Basically, if this gets stopped out, my long is going to continue running, right? But if we end up reversing here, then I'm going to be sitting in a nice short position, basically. That's just another way, just like kind of laddering in and out of positions. It just really helps take some of the stress out, right? Like, rather than completely closing my long and flipping short right now, why don't I just have one position open from each end of this range, and then we'll see which way it breaks from there, basically, right? Your Ondo position was a scalp. Yeah, exactly. It sounds like you do it very similar to how I trade, right? I treat the start of my position as a scalp, and then if it takes off from there, great. If it doesn't, who cares? You paid yourself along the way, anyways. There is still some strength from the Bulls there, but we'll see what happens. That's the great thing about hedging is I really don't care which way the market goes right now. I'm basically going to sit in limbo right now where if we go up a little bit, my short's going to start losing a little bit of money and my long will continue making it, so it'll be basically a break even thing for the next little bit. But the short is just it's more of an insurance play. Let's look at it that way. That if we end up dropping and I end up the rest of the long gets stopped out at break even or whatever, then whatever. I'm in a short position. And again, I've already paid myself along the way on that long anyways, so no matter which way we go at this point, I do not care. It's a nice feeling to have in these stressful markets. On my short, my stop loss is 67.77. So basically, when I set these fibs, my 115 is kind of my invalidation, but so often we just kind of test it and then get shut down from there. So if there is a liquidity grab up to there, just a little fake out above our high here, then I still want that little bit of wiggle room, right? I do have another order set at 60.7k for more of my short, in which case I'll raise my average entry up a little bit if it gets hit. Again, that's just a way to minimize my risk a little bit, right? So if I do get stopped out, it's not like my whole position is getting stopped out from here up to here. My average entry will be more so, somewhere in here up to here. So just helping that risk factor a little bit. Holy, we've already been here for about an hour and a half. Time flies when you're having fun. I kind of want to go do a couple other things, but I really want to see what happens just the next little bit here. See if there's going to be basically which position's going to take over here. I think I'm going to update the stop loss on my long to take a little more profits if we do end up dropping some. Being we have these upward trending P's, I am actually going to set my stop loss. It's kind of like 64.20 is a good number, right? So that I do lock in a little more profits from this position if we end up dropping, and from there the short would take over basically. Or we go to the moon and then my short gets stopped out and the long continues running. You love these live sessions. Well, I'm happy to be of assistance. They're always fun when you just get to watch the charts together, right? I mean, that's one thing with reading charts is it's so lonely when you're locked up in your own little office here. It's always nice looking at charts with you guys. And honestly, I always say this in these sessions, you guys, it does me a solid favor as well when I put these on, because you know how traders are supposed to journal what they do, journal what went wrong, what went right, all that sort of things, what your thought process is. And doing these, it really helps with that, right? When I talk through my emotions, it helps me keep a level head. If there's anything that I want to look back on, I have these videos recorded. So this is basically my journal. So I love doing these with you guys. And it's always nice to be able to look at things from someone else's perspective as well, right? Like if someone else is looking at something, there's a lot of times that other people in the group say things that it's like, oh, maybe I should reconsider. It's always good to have a second opinion, not necessarily going to sway my judgment, for example, but if someone points something out that, you know, you overlook, for example, that can be very beneficial. Even how everyone uses the indicators. You guys, like, we could all have the exact same charts, the exact same structure levels, the same trend lines, the same indicators, and I guarantee we trade these markets completely different. So that's another thing, right, is not everybody looks at things the same. So that's a great thing with this community, is there's so many people teaching just the way they look at things, and sometimes all it takes is that one person to say something that just really makes something click, and it can be a total game changer. So that's where I love having multiple people giving multiple strategies and different opinions and all that sort of stuff. It's like, I love these indicators, but I truly believe more than half the value is being a part of the Discord community. You know, having 2 to 3 live sessions a day with a handful of different coaches all doing their own thing, different things they look at, very beneficial. And honestly, I could talk more about fundamentals and that sort of stuff, but it's just, you know, once you have kind of a grasp on your fundamentals and like the habits you should and shouldn't do, I mean, I'd rather just look at charts. And, you know, I've been trading for several years, and, you know, a lot of us, we have other coaches that go through that a lot better than I would. I like to dive into the degenerate charts and really get into it and just live analyze, you know. Yes, being able to predict and look at longer time frames and all that sort of stuff, that's great. But really diving into these shorter time frames and watching things happen live, it's just such a good way to show examples too, is when you see it happening live, right? I know in the group quite often I will post things and be like, hey, this played out, that played out. It's so difficult to actually share things ahead of time when you're looking at a 1-minute chart. By the time I would actually screenshot, explain what I'm looking at, set my orders, set my stop loss, set my take profits, do all that stuff, by the time I even get you guys, you know, an explanation of what I'm playing, that might be 5 minutes away, and on a 1 minute chart that position could be totally come and gone, and then you get wrecked and wonder what happened, kind of a thing. So I still think it's important to show examples and show how things played out and that sort of thing, especially when you're teaching certain strategies and that sort of thing. But being here live is where we can really see how they're playing out live, right? Like why we got this reaction down here. I mean, we were ready for it. We kind of knew that there was a chance we get a reaction off those fibs, right? So it's just very helpful to see it happening live, and that's why I love the shorter time frames. Yes, as I mentioned, not everybody should be playing the 1 minute chart, but you can still take these principles and apply them to a 4-hour chart or an hourly chart or whatever, a 15-minute, 5-minute, whatever you're more comfortable playing. Like I said, chart structure kind of acts the same, right? So I still look for the same structure breaks followed by the same pullbacks if I'm looking at a 4-hour, for example, right? So whether or not you're into trading the degenerate timeframes, there's still absolutely some value here that, you know, I hope that I can be that person who just says something and really helps something click. You know, when I'm talking about structure or Fibonacci's or waiting for pullbacks after structure breaks, just anything that just maybe helps something click. You know, that's kind of the goal here, is if I can help you guys along the way and you guys can help me along the way. Basically, we're all learning from each other and we're all just fighting this holy, there it goes. Oh, did I get stopped out? No, not quite. Ooh, see, that's why we leave wiggle room, but it might happen still. And then we'll see if the long just takes over. So it's time to start planning, I guess. If this does get stopped out here, which honestly it looks like it's going to, but there's no point in closing the position when it's so close to a stop loss anyways. And since it's an insurance play anyways, we need to start looking at what I should be doing with my long position, since like I said, I have a little bit running yet. Yeah, it's kind of looking like this might take off. There's a chance this just runs, so I really I'm just gonna let that last quarter run. I'm not even gonna set another take profit on it, since I've already, you know, taken most of my profits off the table. We're just gonna see what happens. Or even later, you know, if we get some sort of a rally and then we get some kind of a pullback, then, you know, I can add to my position and still keep a stop loss in a profit, kind of a thing.
But I keep thinking.
Sorry? Go on. I'm not sure if someone was just trying to talk or not, but you're more than welcome to. Maybe that was an accident. Oh yeah, see, taken off. That one is deleted. There we go. That's pretty. And may as well erase that, because that is clearly not resistance at this point. And we got a runner. And just like what I was explaining before, guys, that's why, yes, I pay myself along the way, because I always treat the start of a position like a scalp. But that's why I never close the entire thing right off the bat, right? Is because I'm always open to the idea of something just continuing running, because we don't know how long the market's going to just trend sideways, right? All of a sudden it breaks out. Hey, at least there's something still in there, right? So now obviously we've confirmed a higher high, because that was our higher high. So now basically this is the level we want to hold, right? That would be our higher low on this immediate trend. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a fib like so, and I am going to have my stop loss. Let's let's go 60. 469 because I'm a degenerate. So basically what I'm looking at in this case is that if I were looking at entering a new long position due to, you know, a STUBER fib, right? Because we have this structure break here. So pulling a Fibonacci, just chasing the price with it basically. So if we get a pull back to that, that would be a reasonable long position. But since I'm already in one, I'm basically treating my stop loss, updating it to take profits if this one gets invalidated, if that makes sense. So I'm just kind of using this structure level and then giving it that wiggle room and stop loss on the rest of my position down here. So that worst case scenario on this position now, I take a little more profits. If we end up, you know, there's a chance that we end up just trending down to these levels and we screw around a little bit or something. You know, at that point, I can even add to my position a little bit if I want, and I can still have my stop loss here and in a bit of a profit. In this case, I'm not going to blindly set one, but if we get to those levels, I'll actually set an alert. As we get near those levels, I want to check it out. That's another thing, guys, is setting alerts can be super helpful in these markets. So yeah, basically if we get down towards these levels, I want to see what the market is doing. But if we're forming double bottoms or some sort of bullish divergences, anything like that, then I'll consider adding to my position a little bit. But again, I will only add to it if it seems reasonable that I can at least still keep my stop loss in a very small profit, to at least pay my fees and stuff like that, if nothing else. You'll go long at that level for me. I mean, not financial advice. Do your own research, form your own opinions. One thing that I will say to just to warn you about this is that if you wanted that confirmation with the auto charting tools, you don't have it at this level yet. I mean, there's a chance that it prints a higher low here because it is a lagging indicator. It shows, I don't know what the requirements are, but eventually, you know, it might print one there. In which case that would give me further confirmations to pull a fib from there. But there's a chance that we get this full retrace as well, right? In which case I'll just be ending up taking a little more profits, and then I'll reevaluate there. Maybe I enter a position here or whatever, but one step at a time. Just things that are going to be on my radar going into the evening is all. Since we already know that those were take profit areas, I am going to remove those just to clean things up a little bit. It does look like we're heading back down towards that level. Whether it holds or not again, I guess we will find out. What are some indicators saying? Yeah, we still have our buy trend. We have P's trending to the upside. Yeah, things aren't looking so bad for this position. So basically, the two support levels that I'm currently interested in going into the evening would be that one for this obvious STUBER fib pulled from this swing low to this swing high. In which case we'd be looking at something like so. Or, let me just remove that. We are looking at support potentially down at this level if we're going to get back to the lower end of this range. something like so, in which case we'd be looking at something more so like that if it is to play out properly, right? Does that all kind of make sense to everybody? Just want to make sure I'm it's being absorbed. This green box is just because of this more immediate trend. We have this structure break, whereas this one a little further down is just confirmed by the auto charting tools with this higher low point. So that's where the fibs line up there. And the line's just going to... so notice, like I was saying, this one, for example, if we're looking at that target around that 214, is actually basically the opposite, right? If we were looking for... if we were looking to pull from down here to, let's say we end up bottoming out there in the middle of the box, we'd just be front running the 786 a little bit. And same with on the bigger one, if we end up getting down to that level kind of in the middle of the box, then yeah, obviously then we'd be targeting kind of this approximate area. So hopefully that all kind of makes sense. I think most of you guys have been in these streams for quite a while now, but yeah, if anybody is watching this who doesn't know yet, just because I know there is a couple new people, I do have my own YouTube channel as well, where I sometimes do shorter videos and stuff like that. Sometimes I do live streaming on here on my own randomly as well. As mentioned earlier, the Financial Summit, YouTube them, give them a subscribe, because I know some people have missed my streams there. And that's because I'm not always streaming in this Discord or on my own channel. I'm also streaming on the Financial Summit, so give them a follow. There's a lot of good analysts and traders on there who are also doing their live streams, so give them a follow as well. And Twitter, if you're into Twitter, I also have a Twitter account, YouTube Trading, all one word, and I share my videos there and just random nonsense. So but other than that, guys, I think that's about all I wanted to go over this evening with you guys. Hopefully you guys did find this video useful. Hopefully you took something valuable out of it. Hopefully the way I look at structure and how I use these indicators, how I look at Fibonacci's, all that sort of stuff is just a little bit clearer every time I talk about them. For those of you who are here with me right now, thank you so much for being a part of these live streams. Love doing these with you guys. For those of you who are listening to this on my YouTube channel a little bit later, if you want to be part of this MDX ALGO Discord community, as well as access to these amazing indicators that I always use every single day, there is an additional 10% discount down below using my link on checkout. And yeah, like I said, that'll get you access to these indicators as well as the VIP Discord. So other than that, my friends, I'm doing most of my trading on the Blofin exchange these days. I have a link down below for that as well. If you sign up using my link, you get 20% cash back on your trading fees. I maxed it out for you guys. That's the highest they would let me do. Just another no KYC exchange that I've been trading on recently. Other than that, my friends, I'm out. Stay safe out there. May the crypto gods be generous to you all. Peace out.